lot of silver bugs probably in the audience here. A lot of people that believe in silver and are wondering when it's going to take off, how high it's going to go. But just in your view, what's the main reason someone should have exposure to silver and silver stocks right now? What's going to drive this industry to the kind of highs that we all think and hope is coming?
Well, thanks, Jeff, and thanks everyone for coming today. I've been a long time bull on silver, dating back over 20 years. My early part of my career, I was in the copper space, and I learned a lot about supply-demand fundamentals. And when I left copper, I looked around at the different metals that I could, get excited about. And of course, I love gold, but the gold supply just continually, increases, and it's more of a hedge against, money printing, and I would, suggest that everyone should have gold in their portfolio for those particular reasons. But silver is a completely different animal. I look at silver as a very strategic metal. And when I was doing my analysis back in 2002, 2003, trying to decide, what I'm going to do next, silver just jumped out at me as this very, very unique metal that was completely underappreciated. And what I liked about it as well is that there's very, very few companies that are actually focused on silver. Silver comes as a byproduct mostly, and I witnessed First Quantum Minerals going from $4 or $5 a share to $140 a share between 2004 and 2008. When copper ran from 60 cents to $4 an ounce, or $4 a pound, pardon me, and that told me that investors can get excited. And my thesis when I put together First Majestic was to keep it as pure as possible, keep it focused on silver as much as we possibly can, and I've really kind of stuck to my guns on that. And we've seen a lot of other silver companies around the planet, become gold companies or other types of companies because of the lack of silver mines around the planet. But that tells me that silver is a lot rarer than everyone in this audience actually appreciates. And when we're mining only 8 or 9 to 1, and we're trading 85 to 1, to me that is absolutely nonsensical. And we have to have a compression in the ratio. And my thesis today is even much stronger than it was back in 2002, 2003 when I put the company together. Because today we've got solar panels, we have electric cars, we have computers, cell phones. We got so many technologies that require silver and can't live without silver that didn't even barely exist when I first put this company together, 17 years ago. So I'm more excited about the metal than I ever have been. I'm on record calling, for triple-digit silver. I know that sounds completely nonsensical when you're trading at $18 an ounce, but I still think I'm going to be right. And we're going to stay focused as a company to maintain our purity as a silver company worldwide.
Okay, very good. Thanks. Okay, so let's talk about supply and demand, Keith. In my presentation, I showed that the physical side of the silver market is 3,650 times smaller than all the global wealth in the world. So it's my opinion that when a lot of cash starts flowing into this, that's going to drive the price higher. But there are analysts out there that say, no, there's no issue with supply. There's lots of above ground silver tons, literally. So do you foresee a situation where there could be some sort of supply-demand crunch for silver? And if so, that I assume that you feel that would affect the price. But do you see some kind of supply-demand issue at some point in the future here for silver?
Yeah, look, I've heard similar comments as well, and being in the silver business, I talk to traders on a regular basis about our metal and then selling our metal, and we've never had problems selling our metal. I've never had to negotiate with the buyer on the price that we're going to get our metal for. So, and based on, going back to the 80s and the above ground supply of metal that was reported back then, of course there's jewelry and there's silverware and, there's stuff that, you never know whether it's going to come back on the marketplace or not. But when silver ran from $5 to $50 an ounce between 2003 to 2011, in 2011 there was 250 million ounces of silver recycled that year. And a lot of that silver came from silverware and jewelry, things that people had in their hoards for many, many decades from their families' history and so on. Today, recycling is about 125 million ounces annually. Most of that comes from hospital films. Because the hospitals still use in a lot of places films. Not all hospitals have moved electronic yet, so a good chunk of silver comes from that industry. Other than that, it's small. I've actually invested in recycling businesses myself. I know of a couple of companies here in Vancouver that have basically gone bankrupt because you can't actually take the metal out of a cell phone and make money doing it. It's just not enough value. And China's just recently cut off all imports of computer waste because they were finding that these circuit boards that are in these computers today are so sophisticatedly manufactured that it's almost impossible with technology today to actually extract the precious metals out of a circuit board. So so China, due to the pollution that they were creating, trying to get their precious metals out of computer waste, they've just stopped importing it 100%. So there's no place for recycling of precious metals from electronics to actually go, which is pretty shocking. So what does that tell you? We need $10,000 gold, we need $100 silver to make the recycling business even viable. So that supply, this above ground hoard that people have talked about, I just don't see it existing.
Okay, very good. So silver prices are still below $20. So I want to talk about the amount of leverage that we can see to the miners that a rising silver price can offer. So the silver price and the gold price can go up 10, 20%, but the earnings of a company can go up 100% based on that small move in the price of the metal. Mm. So with the silver miners, and especially with the silver price not even being $20 yet, talk to us about the kind of leverage that a shareholder can see in the stock price because of a rising silver price.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an excellent point, Jeff, and I think this is one of those, Eric Sprott talks a lot about this. I'd suggest that you listen to his Friday podcasts on Sprott Money. He covers this topic, very thoroughly, but it's dead on right. For a company like First Majestic, for example, we're producing approximately 25 million ounces of silver equivalent annually. So you have a $1 move, and that's $25 million in extra revenue. Your costs are relatively fixed. They don't move that dramatically Q over Q. So that's an extra 25 million bucks that basically drops to the bottom line. And we had, $14.50 silver, just a year ago. And at $18 silver today, that's an extra $100 million in cash that's coming into our business. And that, most of that, assuming, we don't spend it, which we now are investing that capital in innovation and technology, because it's now time, in my view, we're at the beginning of a new cycle. I think we're going to be probably into another 5 to 10 year bull market here. And companies, a lot of mining companies right now, not just First Majestic, are starting to reinvest the capital. The earnings that are actually flowing into the business is going back into building this business again after 6 years of devastation. So I think the next few years are going to be exciting, not just for First Majestic, but the entire mining sector.
And just by way of example of what kind of leverage you can get from that, silver was up 16% last year, I believe. First Majestic doubled. the share price doubled last year. So this is the kind of leverage, and why I personally am so excited about the silver market and the silver equity market especially.
Yeah, to that point, Jeff, it's excellent. I should have covered that as well. And, because after all, you're investing in First Majestic because of the exposure to silver. And our beta to the price of silver is unlike any other silver mining company on the planet. Our stock trades something like 5 million shares a day, a value of something like 50, 60, 70 million dollars in value per day. It's likely the most liquid mining stock on the planet. It's loved by hedge funds, and they trade the bejesus out of it. When silver moves $1, our stock generally moves $3. And historically, you go back 17 years, and you'll see that time and time again happen.
So let's talk about M&A. A lot of kind of rumblings about M&A in the gold and silver sector. What do you see ahead for the industry as a whole, the precious metals sector? Do you see a lot of M&A ahead? Is this going to be good for the industry? What do you see happening, especially with the silver industry, which is so small? How much M&A can there really even be in the silver sector? So what do you see ahead for M&A in our industry?
Yeah, unfortunately, it's almost become a necessity. With all the professional money now basically gone, and most of the investment that's coming into the sector is passive money through ETFs, and a company like First Majestic, we're 20% owned. Actually, I think it's higher than that, by a group of ETFs, and that's where our daily trading volume comes from, is these passive funds. Now, if you're not in an ETF, if you're a junior mining company, you're struggling for liquidity, and you're struggling for capital. It's those companies that are the ones that the majors like First Majestic are actually looking at, because the fact that we don't have professional money left in this business, it creates this huge void. And guys like Eric Sprott, for example, he's professional at taking advantage of that. So he's going, taking 10 or 20% positions in all these junior companies, which great assets, but they're not in ETFs. So they don't trade, they're ignored by the marketplace. For them to get money is almost impossible, and it's just this very, very strange market. And I think over the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to see companies like First Majestic get bigger, unfortunately, at the cost of a lot of the small juniors who just have no other choice but to merge with a major.
Very good. Okay, so in full disclosure, I own shares in First Majestic. I've been a shareholder for a long time. I really believe in the company. And one of those reasons is because it offers so much leverage to the price of silver. There's many examples just in the past 10, 12 years where silver's moved up X, but First Majestic stock has moved up this much. So as a greedy shareholder, I like that. But in your view, as the CEO of the company, what's the most compelling reason to buy First Majestic Silver at this time?
Well, first of all, the silver, exposure, obviously, it's something that's dear to me. I put this company together. I wanted to stay as focused as possible. It's challenging. The last 2 acquisitions we did have a lot of gold. I like gold, but I want to stay as pure silver as possible. And I can tell you, silver mines are very, very difficult to find. So that is a big challenge for us from an M&A perspective. But also the management team. We're very dedicated, very focused, been around for 17 years. We're one of the biggest players in Mexico, one of the most well-known silver companies on the planet. I think, we're quite well respected, well earned, I believe, at least, maybe I'm slightly biased when I say that, but I think it's well earned. There's been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears put in this business over the last 17 years, I can tell you that. But no, we're a very focused, dedicated team. We're always looking for ways to save money. I'm big on innovation. I'm big on technology. Some of the stuff that First Majestic's doing from a innovation standpoint, I suggest you look at that, look at some of the stuff that we're doing. Like, we're blowing companies away with some of the technologies that we're adopting in our business.
Talk to them about the Hig mill that you guys have installed, because recovery rates are just really going to, they've been in an uptrend for years, and they're going to keep on going with this new Hig mill. Talk about that real quick.
Yeah, and thanks, Jeff. The recoveries at Santa Elena, for example, are around 88%, and today they're pushing 98%, 96, 97% on a regular basis. And that extra 5 to 10% recovery for a mine of that size is producing about 6 million ounces of silver equivalent annually. So it's about 500,000 to 600,000 extra ounces dropping to the bottom line with actually quite limited costs, and that is basically pure profit. We're installing that same technology at all the other, La Cantata and San Dimas will be getting it in 2020 and 2021. This Hig is the first Hig mill in the world that's actually taking direct feed ore from any mine, which is pretty shocking. And it's actually the only Hig operating in all of Latin America currently. We've got people coming around the world looking at what we've done with this technology, and it's pretty surprising and very exciting. We're just going to keep pushing hard and keep adopting new technologies. It's something we started back in 2014, so we're 5-6 years into this. And if you look at, there's an interesting slide in our presentation that shows our recoveries from 2014 to date. And if you look at all our mines dating back to 2014, we had an average recovery of silver of 65%. So we had 35% of our silver going into waste. And that's common. A lot of mining companies accept that as normal course because they're limited, they don't want to adopt, they don't want to take on new technologies because, of course, it's expensive and it takes time and there's risk behind it. And some companies just elect not to go down that path. We've taken that path. And now today our average recoveries, actually Q3, our Q4 numbers aren't out yet, but our Q3 recoveries were 88%, the highest, that's global number, highest in the history of the company.
Okay, so Keith, other than First Majestic, this is an investment conference, a lot of companies are out there. So what company other than your stock do you find interesting or compelling, or would you maybe tell people, hey, check this particular stock out? Is there any out there that you find interesting or compelling?
Yeah, it's always a tough question. I'm pretty familiar with the space, obviously, and Pan American would be one that would come to mind right away. They are bigger than we are, but it's a company that I look up to and I respect. Great management team, good portfolio, and very well-run company. They pay a dividend, something we hope to pay over the next couple of years as our business develops. On the junior side, as most of you probably know, I'm a big shareholder of Silver One. Trades around 30 cents, run by a fellow named Greg Crow. He's a great CEO, and I've just recently put some more money into it in a private placement they did. So, that would be one that I would consider looking at. But the space is tiny, and it's really hard to find good silver companies out there.